But then there is music, or was. That seraphic being who extended her hand down to me when I was drowning in the filth pits of hell, promised her friendship, nay, her love, promised she would never fail to give back anything and everything I gave to her, and this proved to be, for the most part, at any rate, no lie. It is the very reason I still walk the earth, it being not all that clear that that is a good thing, but that is not the story on which I wish to presently dwell. She spoke to me of other realms, universes, present in and commingling with this one, into which I could escape, in which I could speak and be spoken to, worlds that would make the one in which I was forced to plod seem boring and mediocre at best, and, far more often, utterly contemptible, atrocious, to be scorned, escaped from, perhaps even destroyed, had I the means to do so. Having never had the means, I cannot say how I would have, or how I would now behave. It is more than likely I would do nothing, even be kind, a sort of Sade pardoning his mother-in-law, the woman who saw to it that he was incarcerated for 30 years, and who made of his life a living hell. Yes, yes, it is far from likely that had I the power to travel back in time and don some two-bit children's fantasy writer's cloak of invisibility, that I would slit my mother's throat, stab the bullies who roamed and ruled the gymnasium locker rooms, whom I recall with such horror, the sadistic teachers, the sadistic summer camp karate counselors, the women who betrayed me. No, no, they are absurd, stick figures, pawns on the chessboard of a fallible memory, and I am more than a little bored with memory, bored, impatient, mistrustful. Grandfather was right. The secret of happiness is a bad memory. But who wants happiness? Only idiots, grifters, and huckster gurus sell it. It is more or less as desirable as eternal life. That is to say, repellent, disgusting, a thing of horror. And so she and I, this music, what shall I name her? That's not an easy call. She is such a shapeshifter, this music. Could there possibly be a name which would suit her? She appears, disappears, makes herself perfectly comprehensible, is inviting, flees into the ether, reappears, is momentarily seductive, whispers in my ear, at times intensely, sometimes for well over an hour. I cannot scribble madly or rapidly enough to suit her at such times, and then she is gone. Though not entirely, for I can then sculpt the clay she has given me. She still seems to hover behind me, just behind my left shoulder, curious what it is I might do next with the cup of nectar she has just offered me. Perhaps I shall spill it, perhaps discover it wasn't nectar at all, rather a store-bought cup of processed crap. Perhaps the drug she poured into my very being was exactly what I thought it was when I found myself swimming in it, a wondrous part of myself, of whose existence I had not previously had the remotest notion. For the Greeks, she was Euterpe. That is more or less as appealing and appropriate a name for her as, what can I say, Karen or Sheila. That is to say, the name of some monstrous, obese, middle-aged Jewish termagant. No, no, I shall find it, stumble upon it, her name, if not now, then eventually, for I must call her. Perhaps her visits would then become more likely. I call my long-dead wife before sleep with her name, Kathy, Kathy, and indeed, she does, at times, come. Then, later that very night, upon awaking from some dream, I might find her sitting on the far side of the room, smiling, weeping. It is her, and it might very well have been her name that was the talisman. But there is no name for music. There can never be, could never be. It is like when one is in the throes of passion with a woman one might even believe one loves. Suddenly she is not singular, she is infinite. She is every woman that has ever walked the earth. Nameless, divine, to speak a name at that moment would be blasphemous. The creature, who is all creatures, would melt away in an instant. So I cannot call to her, name her, this music, for she is all things, and I cannot call for another reason, equally mysterious and perhaps no less profound, for the I that calls, that has its own insipid appellation, which I so loathe, the one I unwillingly must call myself and am forced to respond to. It is no less absurd a thing, for this I that calls to her is no less infinite, if not infinite, then, at the very least, wildly unstable, fluctuating from day to day, nay, from hour to hour, from this person to that, the I, that calls to her at a given moment exists only in that moment, and I do not, truth to tell, call her. I am just made aware she is near. I need not call her. I need just open the door, to listen, to let her speak. This nameless angel, or rather, this angel with countless names, none of which could ever catch her for more than an hour, a melody that goes on for sometimes many minutes, dropping like a silver thread from the heavens. I just have to listen, to remember it has come, even in dreams, at times, though that is not usual. Is it? Is she always there? It seems to me these things have existed since the very beginning. They are in no sense novel. It's only we that have become novel, sufficiently open, wise, and able to hear them, to let them pass through us into the imbecilic, material world, where they lose something, sometimes a great deal. For those first moments in which she sings to us, the song is perfect. It is shattering. It is a staring at the sun. One must look away immediately, or perhaps it is she that partially covers it for our safety, so that we are not burnt to ashes, flayed alive. Perhaps it is a fit of embarrassment on her part, at her nakedness. Whatever the reason, the moment we have grasped some bit of it, that she has handed off to us what seems permissible for her to give us, it is already somewhat soiled, less than a thing of this world now, and no longer entirely of hers. And yet, if the handoff has been sincere and lasted long enough, and we have been open enough, the diamond she has placed in the palm of our hand, flawed though it is, blemished, pockmarked, is glowing still, radiant, warm. It is up to us now. It is now in our world, the world of shit, piss, snot, hunger, betrayals, illness, disappointment, and death. And there are those times when what one was sure was only a mildly blemished diamond, quite certain that it was and was destined to remain ever thus, reveals itself when one returns to it. As but a lump of coal, one hardly feels angry at her. The gift was sincere. The rage is at one's self, and at the world, for its tenuous connection to the worlds that really matter, at its meagreness and its stupidity. It is the house of a mendacious Philistine scribbler, incapable of noticing when a Monet walks past his window carrying his easel. My loneliness is stupefying. But for whom? For what? If she were to whisper in my ear this very moment, I would cease my idiotic scribbling immediately. Nothing would matter other than her song, and my attempting to carry off as best a dictation as I could manage of that song. People would be and would remain nothing, so long as her song continued, the hope being that I'd at least be allowed to transcribe bits and pieces of it sufficient to allow me to return to them later. It is, at such times, as if I am a creature that can nourish itself on air alone, a sort of atmospheric microbe, in a perpetual, drunken state of ecstasy, of orgasm, if it were to continue. I would happily starve to death in her arms, and be taken up in her winged embrace. But no, she never stays, she never calls, she never sings for more than an hour or two, and I am inevitably forced to partake of some vile earthly nourishment which then passes through my abominable body, and which I then hopefully later shit out for non-ethereal microbes to feast on. And so it goes. I live for her alone. I have no worldly love, no material being, certainly no woman, certainly no child. I care to call my own, sister, wife. Well, that's not quite right, perhaps, Kathy. But no, not even she. The corporeal world is a nightmare world. I wish only to be eventually free of it. I hear the others. I hear them. The ones who proclaim life good, who say they like or love life. I cannot absolutely declare they are wrong. And yet I can most certainly declare that, to the last man, anyone who says such a thing is, upon inspection, a blockhead beneath one's contempt. But that is another matter. My loves, who were they, really? Nothing then, and nothing now. And those scribblings on the music rack, my scribblings, especially those which were fresh after some particularly delirious visitation, what were they, and what are they now? If only I could chase her, stumble into her world, what then? Would it be as absurdly boring as Dante's Paradise? Perhaps. Perhaps one can only taste of her wonders, be ravished by them, when one is incarcerated in a body of filth, thrown into a world of pigs. When you are a pig in a world of pigs, you are content. When you are something of an eagle whose wings routinely fail, and which cause it to come crashing down, to slam against all the mud and filth of which this world of pigs is composed, but an eagle nonetheless, who occasionally is drunk on the sweetest perfume of rainbow-filled ethers, who has come undone, who has tossed his very self to the winds. Oh dear, this is getting all so very Icarus. Let's leave off with all this. In the interim, back, as I am, in the mud-filled barn, where the stench of dung is so overwhelming, they are all pigs. They have always been pigs. They can never be other than pigs. Yes, pigs can be intelligent, feel things, suffer, all of that. And to feel the affection of a pig, or to feel affection for a pig, neither is to be entirely scoffed at, and yet, snort as I may, and no matter how many lexicons of porcine language I consult, the impossibility of it all is soul-crushing, the desolation, the friendlessness, nay, the impossibility of friendship, the alienation, the endless melancholy. It is all so very awful and so very boring. I must be going now to where I do not know. And when, on those rare and much wished-for occasions, when she has dropped this blemished diamond in my lap, and I have cherished it, sculpted it, made it into a living being which speaks to me, which speaks of me, there is not a single pig who has the faintest notion of what it is I have received from her, the ecstasy of its first moments, of its being born, of my guardianship, of its coming to maturity. None of that. Oh, they may find it lovely, or it may, perhaps, even evoke a smile or tear, and good for them, I suppose. There is not the slightest solace or sweetness in any of that for me, for I don't give a damn for any of them. Any compliment they might throw my way, or any kindness they might show me. Nothing but nonsense, fraud, mockery, simulation, lies, done for their benefit only, and existing only within them, created, performed, exchanged, or given only for themselves, only to soothe themselves, and to contribute one more lie to the infinite number of lies, which constitutes the foundation upon which their house of cards rests. I, too, live in a house of cards, but at least I know its contours, the basics of its architecture, and occasionally even give its walls a good huff and puff to momentarily tweak my self-respect, or just for the hell of it. But they? Never. Who was Kathy, for whom I grieved so poorly, for whom I went so numb for so many decades, who now rips me to shreds and destroys me? Who was she? I, only I, and as it is for them, so too for me. It has only been when she has visited Euterpe, such an absurd, almost disgusting name, but there's nothing for it. Of course, I have played and practiced the music of others more routinely visited by her for tens of thousands of hours. It is a way of being close, though a terribly frustrating one, quite maddening, in fact. But it does provide a certain balm. It throws something of a chair down in this barn full of pigs, upon which I can sit and be bathed in a light which shines from above, which none of the snorting pigs about me can see or hear. In fact, when seated upon this chair, I become, sometimes entirely, sometimes more or less so, oblivious of them. And that is nothing to be scoffed at. I should, when all is said and done, be grateful, no? That I have these intermittent opportunities to busy myself with pleasures that provide me with something of a baffle, which deflect the sounds of all those snorting pigs, their demands, their stench. If only for a few hours, I am indeed grateful. And did I not keep you holy? You who kept me alive, provided me the means, the nourishment to sustain myself from almost the very beginning. Would I not otherwise have been dead at 12, at 10, at 8, at 6 years old without you? And I have never betrayed you. Yes, there have been times when I read through or even practiced the most hideous nonsense, but that was when playing the music of others, and when I was a hostage to nonsensical propaganda, the cult of ugliness, which justified itself because it found itself in a world of ugliness, as if that has not been the situation since the first flute was sounded, or first sharp stone etched a mammoth on a cave wall. And you, when you whispered those gifts in my ear, those momentary flawless diamonds for which I grasped, which became, in my flawed hands, so very imperfect, why did you share with me only lovely things? Sorrowful things, yes, even tragic things, but always beautiful things, the contents of which I did my very best to preserve and to honour. Why? Why murmur to me the secrets of where my best and noble selves lay, where I could find them, and how I could aspire to, even become them? At least for those brief, miraculous periods of time. I do not understand the sort of marriage we are in, for yes, it is surely that, and has been since the very beginning, one in which I have been betrayed very few times, and, when betrayed, not for long periods, although they left me in utter torment, distressed, to the point of grinding my bones, with the worry that the separation was to be permanent. But lo, back you would come, to me, who has such ugliness within him, and who lets it burble up and sometimes explode from within himself, like arsenic-laced steam, in page after page after page, as well as in words both spoken and written to others, but never to or about you. You I have never betrayed, and that has not been difficult. In fact, it would be quite beyond me to ever have done so. It would not have occurred to me. It has never occurred to me. You are my radiant goddess, before whom I bow down. I am your happy, willing slave. You have kept me alive for well over half a century. You, and only you. The others? What were they? Hallucinations, phantasms, harpies, beasts, mannequins bought at a dress shop, and outfitted, nay, cloaked, covered, made to disappear behind closet upon closet of wardrobes, full of beautiful, yes, but utterly contaminated garments, contaminated by me, for they were me, are me, and one would think that even upon you, the deepest and only real love of my life, that I would throw these hideous costumes even upon you. But never, never, never has that happened. Never have I been tempted to do such a thing. You it has been that have made of this world a bearable thing. Apart from you, I am nothing, nay, far from nothing, a vile thing, a poisonous cobra, a rage-filled Komodo dragon raging about in an antique shop. Pow silly. The world is no antique shop, it is a zoo full of other poisonous snakes, serpents, and scorpions, far worse than me. They're everywhere, in the grass, the trees, the sky, boring holes through the walls this very moment to encircle and suffocate me, to rip my throat to bloody shreds with their fangs. Everywhere fangs. Everywhere stupidity, mean-spiritedness. I find that, and only that, absolutely everywhere and in everyone other than in you. Yes, the world can be beautiful, the natural world. Is it a cabaret then, a peep show, behind which one finds limbs of painted whores hung from meat hooks, snarling, offering themselves, here a face, here a cunt, here a pair of eyes. This nature, turn it over, like the old joke in which the apple is said to taste like a pussy. The innocent fruit lover tastes it, declares that it tastes like shit, and his host tells him to simply turn it over. But here, in this world, our world, apples taste only of shit. Turn the lovely log over, observe the holocaust beneath. Look carefully at the lawn, the pond, the carnage, the annihilation, it's everywhere. This universe, this gigantic monstrosity, constantly feeding on itself, shoving its limbs down its own greedy gullet, only to shit them out again, only to have at it again and again and again. I can no longer look upon the world. I see only its monstrosity. I want to smash the moon with my fists, yank the stars from the sky, murder the sun, destroy, massacre everything and everyone I see. Except for you, my beloved muse, who has, at times, left me, who has, apparently, although I am not sure, whispered hideous things into the minds and hearts of other writers of music, whose souls could not possibly be more hideous than my own, and who brought such filth, the filth which is themselves, so happily into the world, bidding the world look upon their bleeding viscera, upon all that was worst in them, and declare it good. And I too do this happily, nay, eagerly, with great pleasure, at times, in words, insults, sarcasm, whatever is at hand, never violence, and for that I almost certainly can only thank timidity, and the mother who destroyed my will and initiative, and who made me able to engage in vengeance when I deemed it was called for, only through such disgusting, trivial, and never truly satisfying means. Would that I had her before me now, and would that she hadn't made it impossible for me to so much as squash as a spider or cricket, whom I routinely ferry from the house with the deepest care and concern. Would she have left me the will, the aptitude, the talent for slitting throats, so that I could slit hers, and slowly enough that I could relish every gurgle and scream the bitch would spit out as she crumbled to the floor, and then I might very well turn around to find you there, my beloved, my goddess. How many of me are there then? This wannabe murderer, this timid, compassionate, idealistic worshipper of the divine, of you, of the eternal feminine, I've glimpsed now and then in a woman, those hairy, smelly, ultimately, hopelessly unsatisfying sacks of shit. And yet, I've looked within a few, or rather beyond, or perhaps so deeply within them that I have indeed observed the most wondrous celestial things of which they were utterly unaware, since these things were not visible to them, nor had I the slightest interest or compassion for them, only the wish that they open the window to the divine, which appears to me as if it lies within them, but which lives within me, and which they only somehow harbour and hint at from within themselves, which I could see, while they, of course, could not. And because it was within me, yet I had somehow placed it, imagined it, within them. It was as if I were now a sort of photographer or painter, sticking my thumb out to gauge the proportions of the canvas upon which I was to slop all these paints I'd been forced to carry with me, since when? Perhaps for many lifetimes. Yes, that would stand to reason, too. Their awfulness would suggest they could not simply be the result of only this one dog-shit life, the one I know, yes, the result of many, many lifetimes. Of shit. They could never bear it, these ladies. The pigments were too thick, ponderous and heavy, beyond what any woman could possibly tolerate. I would attempt to drown them in these paints, and, needless to say, the smarter ones, the ones with the more immediate intuitions and instincts for survival, would flee, dripping in paint, of course, on occasion laughably so, but soon to be washed off by a man, or by many men, all far more healthy than I. More healthy and less interesting. They bearing barely one easel, I bearing thousands. Are you listening, my beloved muse? Are you whispering into the ear of another? A writer of ugly music, of stupid music, perhaps of minimalist music or film music, perhaps into the ear of a middle school girl with a guitar, or into the ear of a composer whose music claims and superficially appears to be complex, but is actually anything but, is rather a stagnant pond filled with mud, in which the man, it is almost always a man, admires his reflected image, shit brown and utterly accurate. I do not need you at this very moment. I am not pining for you. Why? Because the bile that is within me, that courses through my veins, is here. Boiling, my brain is feverish with it. I am nothing but rage, disgust, the wish to destroy. It is not all of me, but it is all of me at this moment. There is this vigour in me, which disappears the moment you appear. You show up, unannounced, unexpected, and I am suddenly that little boy, that little terrified boy, full of infinite sadness and wishing to die, in love with beauty, in love with anything that will take him out of himself, out of the hell in which he found himself and which lives in him still. You showed up then. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I can never repay you, of course, other than to honour you, to be true to the things you murmur to me, though I can never catch them in quite the way I wish. I do so try so very hard to be true to you. I would never, ever hurt you, betray you. Make of what you are kind enough to give me something ugly, something trivial. Well then, that is often the case, because I myself am trivial. But when you whisper to me of pain, of heartache, of misery, of loss, I hear it and I know it. I can catch it. I can cradle it in my hands, feed it as best I can, allow it to live, however fragile and brief that life ends up. I do everything within my power to nourish it. I would and will die for it and for you, content and grateful, and for, perhaps, that one young lady whom I consider my actual daughter, not that beast that dropped out of the crotch of, well, let's not continue on with that. It is too vile. And you are too beautiful. Yes, for her as well. although perhaps that's simply because I do not know her well enough. Perhaps that is why I feel this agape love, this non-transactional, divine love. Perhaps if I knew her better. Stop. I shall stop. She is an angel. Not like you, no, but nonetheless an angel. But I am no painter of women, no painter of anything. Perhaps I could capture them in music? Ridiculous. The melodies which are still whispered to me by my only true and constant love could not possibly have anything to do with these creatures, these trivial, narcissistic mannequins, these brick walls, these perpetual sources of the profoundest disappointment, for which I have only myself to blame, since it has only ever been my absurd idealizations and expectations of them with which I've been in love. Every flesh and blood encounter, with their realities, their bodies, their absurd demands, and inconsequential personalities, each necessitating my own unwilling encounter with my own, these have created only suffering, for them and for me. I can, and have, many times, grafted some title or other on a melody, sometimes a good one, which, on its own, means nothing. Melodies do not mean anything. They please one, leave another cold, and may very well sicken a third, as if they were almonds or oysters. They can underline words, yes, but might have just as well underlined others. There is only ever the general sense of, say, something sorrowful. But sorrow is a thing of infinite varieties and colours. There is most certainly a sense of ominous tragedy in the prelude to the third act of Tristan. But my tragedies have very little to do with yours, and, heaven help us, nothing at all to do with Tristan's blood-curdling, erotic shrieking, which is so soon to come. Music is a sacred place, a place for vestal virgins, not women in whose crotch one sticks this or that, and who inevitably shatter one's heart. One does not enter a sanctuary and shit upon its altar. I say that only in reference to this sanctuary, I would be more than happy to worm my way late some evening into any number of churches, synagogues, and mosques. To shit upon their altars, that is a very different matter. Clearly, I am a monster. It is horrendous. I want only to be other, to no longer be myself. I am choking on this strangeness, all this talk of music, women, synagogues, none of it matters. It is all a dream, from which I only wake to another, equally insipid and monstrous, the dream of myself, from whom I cannot escape, yet wish so profoundly to escape. Perhaps, if I were to follow a thought then, to its conclusion. But they never have conclusions. How then to rid myself of myself? There is nothing for it. I touch the piano. Suddenly it seems as if I've coughed up something of a tune. It is not quite awful. There seems to be something in it. And yet there's nothing in it. There cannot possibly be anything in it, for I created it. And there is absolutely nothing in me, this talk, this nonsense, that a muse has somehow whispered to me. It's just some mutinous, aberrant cabal of neurons spitting up in some cleft within a brain, which is rotting as I type, my fingers 10,000 miles away, the fingers of a monster, freckled, veined, hideous, skipping away like little chipmunks, constantly running under houses, running from predators, looking for food. My fingers are running, mindlessly. Oh no, from death she is here, in my room, she is upon me. Perhaps there is another fantasy I can now entertain that will kill some number of minutes, take me out of myself, at least for a few moments, some story, although the stories the others tell are always so dull, so imbecilic. But are mine any better? Of course not, but they are mine. But I am the problem in the first place. It is not my story I want, no, Absolutely not. I want to become another. No, that won't do either. I want simply to no longer be myself. I am unbearably boring. To wake up as myself again, like some vampire condemned to walk the earth for all eternity. Flesh withered, insides gutted, yet still somehow here. How is such a thing possible? And yet it is, for such am I. My young friend, does she experience any of this? This lacerating strangeness that she must needs be no less subject to than I. How is it then that people are not running into the streets, screaming, trying to pull down the clouds, or find a way to be borne up by and within them? Ah, well, there are those fools who are waiting for precisely that. But they are blockheads who expect to simply remain themselves, sitting upon clouds. Yes, yet attending the very same church services, eating the same processed food and television. Perhaps their new pastor is to be a sort of ethereal, doubtless Caucasian Jesus instead of the ordinary dolt to whom they'd grown accustomed. But nonetheless, they are recognizably themselves, and, seemingly, not the least bit incredulous or curious, not bothered by any of it, in fact. What I want is something quite other to be, as I am borne up, to be ripped apart, cell by cell, molecule by molecule, and for all those infinite bits of misery which constituted this excruciating consciousness to be tossed so far asunder that there be no chance of any future communication between them. One wonders how much agony an electron is forced to bear. My dear, beloved young friend, I pray you know none of this, that you shall never feel any of this. For you I can perhaps pull down some melody from the heavens, one worthy of you, be permitted to do so, but only for you. When you asked me, do you want me not to go? Meaning, do you need me to stay because I will, because I love you? At least that is what I understood you to mean. I had never heard, and will, doubtless, never hear again anything so beautiful. Nothing has caused me such endless, joyful tears every time I think of it. No one has ever said anything to me even remotely like that, so artless, so kind, wanting nothing in return. You are a thing, a creature, nay, an angel that I thought could never grow, could never arise on this earth. Of course I said no, for I had already received the gift was your offer. I needed nothing more, and shall never need anything more from anyone. I am disarmed, paralyzed every time I recall it. I love you. It tears at me. It rips my flesh. This love, any love. It is an awful thing, and yet it is the only reason to live that would cause anyone to want to live. And yet I want to do neither to love nor to live, only to rid myself of myself. And those are the only two means of which I'm aware. Oh yes, Miss Music, there is she, now and then, she whom I praise to the skies above, and whom I now think a vulgar whore, prattling the most insipid drivel into the ears of self-important idiots who call themselves artists, who inflict upon the world chatter more insufferable than the babbling of toddlers, the taunts of adolescents on playgrounds, lunatics, politicians. And the fools want, nay, expect others to actually listen to it. And they do, because one fool likes nothing more than another, who reassures him his ignorance is a wonderful thing, and encourages him to revel in it. If I could but sterilize the planet, hire thousands of brutes to shove quinacrine up every awful crack of every awful woman, chemically castrate every male before they hit puberty, it's not eugenics I want, for there is not a one worth saving. Do I mean that? Of course I don't, yet, of course I do. Everything is fragile, the world is collapsing, folding in upon itself. I am sinking, splitting, though there's nothing in me left to collapse, a pair of eyes watching fingers type, fingers which don't belong to me, certainly I am no longer human, they are all bound to see at least that it matters not. In fact, it shall be a sort of triumph. This becoming a beast, this sack filled with shards of glass, which somehow propels itself through time and space. Oh yes, there are my legs, I'd quite forgotten about them. Rather, not mine, legs. There are legs, simply legs. Legs, fingers, objects, the sounds of words being spoken. These words, by a voice half familiar to me, and yet there is no me. That voice, is it out there? Well, once it's spoken, of course it's out there. Where else might it be? Voice, words, fingers, legs, they've naught to do with one another. Not really, they've minds of their own. I am not telling the fingers to type this twaddle. It's an agenda little or nothing to do with me. Like some pack of voracious white blood cells attacking viruses, fungi, parasites. Whatever it is such things attack. It is a satanic circus, this universe. And its ringleader is Yaldabaoth, the mad, sadistic demiurge of the Gnostics. We're privy to just bits of it. We are just bits of it, each bit going its own way, foxtrotting in its own unique agony towards oblivion. Of course, these thoughts, this sorrow, these agonies, this dissociation, are they not all enabled by privilege? Would disembodied fingers be typing? Legs which do not belong to me be twitching? Were I being starved to death and dodging bullets? They would not. But I am no less a shoddily assembled machine here and now than I would be there and then. Oh, that swooning idiot who sits just behind my eyes, a bit above them. He who watches and oversees fingers, legs, bladders, which need to pee, who is nothing other than need, sickening, infinite need, blind animal need. It is all so disgusting, so appalling. I am disgusting, you are disgusting, the world and universe are disgusting. We and they are all abominable, gruesome mistakes, and to recognize that at least gives one a bit of tangible nobility. One can roll between one's thumb and index finger for a few moments before it dissolves in the air, and you want nothing more than to take those very same fingers and rip out your eyes, run to the kitchen to grab that one particular knife. Surely it is long enough but to do. What? Ah, but that is the question. There is no nobler, my friend. Everything we see, feel, dream, eat, shit is imaginary. We are imaginary beings imagining, hopelessly desperate and condemned to die, hopelessly hungry and condemned to starve, miserable beyond what words can tell, numbingly habituated, palsied, gangrenous, already dead. To die now would be to engage in the most unforgivable of redundancies. There's nothing for it other than to lean into the stupidity. Embrace the prison walls of one's body. Let the streets resound with their tone-deaf tunes and ignorant chatter. Watch the jays pull the worms from the ground. For there is one more senseless, imbecilic day to be gotten through, with the hope that in those few moments just before sleep, if sleep comes, which it often chooses not to, in those treasured, weightless moments of freedom, when even what I once recognized as great music sounds again, as if it might be so, when the world is a bit less strange, menacing, and awful, one lives for those moments, though they be only seconds long. I live for those moments, that moment, especially because they come just before sleep, which is a little death, which is, when we are honest with ourselves, what we all really most want. To die in one's sleep, and to be assured there shall be no more of this horror, that it shall end. With the last B major chord of Tristan, the most perfectly orchestrated chord in the history of music. You hear it now, don't you? It is dying, disappearing. Could anything be more beaut?